Well, welcome everyone to the Board of Fire Commissioners. We will please start with the salute to the flag, and we'll have Vice President Rivera start us off. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. And Madam Clerk, if we could please do the roll call.
Alexis Hill, Chair.
Here.
Jean Herman, Vice Chair. Mike Clark.
Present.
Mariluz Garcia. Here. Clara Andriola is absent. And we have Wade Carner from the DA's office.
Here.
And Chief Moore.
Here.
Madam, you have a quorum.
Thank you very much. We now will look at item 3. Mr. Chief, if you'll lead us into that.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Item 3 is public comment. Comment heard under this item will be limited to 3 minutes per person and may pertain to matters both on and off the Board of Fire Commissioners agenda. District will also hear public comment during individual action items with comment limited to 3 minutes per person. Comments are to be made to the Board of Fire Commissioners as a whole.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, do we have any public comment?
We have nobody signed in.
Okay. We will now go to item 4. Chief, will you lead us into that?
Item 4 is Commissioners, Fire Chiefs announcements, requests for information, topics for future agendas, and statements relating to items not on the agenda. No discussion among commissioners will take place on this item.
Great. And Chief, I understand that you have some items you'd like to pull and maybe some announcements to make as well.
I do. Thank you, Madam Chair. One announcement is that we're starting our strategic plan, and as part of the public input process, citizens will be able to find a link on our website to where they can go in and sign up for a survey that will be sent to them, and they can return it and they can give us our ideas on what they think the district ought to look like in the next 3 years, or issues that they're concerned with on service level, or if they are pleased with service, they can certainly say that too. So we will make an announcement on that sometime very soon. The link should be up in just a few days. Finally, on the consent agenda, we need to pull item 5F, and we'll be bringing that back in June. We just had some last minute changes, and we will not need item 13.
Okay. Thank you, Chief. With that, do I have any commissioners sign in for comment under the item 4? Not seeing any. Okay, and Chief, thanks so much for doing that public survey. I think that is brilliant. I commend you for doing that. And if there is a way, I don't know if we do a newsletter, but making sure we get that out in our newsletter and social media. And I'm just trying to think other ways we can make sure it's distributed so we can really get a lot of input. But I think that's a great move. So thank you for that.
Thank you. I will task Adam Mayberry to make sure that that's broadcast far and wide.
Okay, and now we will close item 4 and go into item 5, Chief.
Item 5 are consent items, items A, B, C, D, and E.
Okay. Any comments or questions by commissioners on the consent items? I'm not seeing any. Does anyone want to make a motion for approval on consent? Yes.
Madam Chair, I move to approve the items on the consent.
Thank you, Commissioner Garcia.
Second.
Thank you, Vice Chair Herman. We have a motion and a second. Any comment on the motion? I'm not seeing any. Any public comment?
There is none.
Okay, thank you, Madam Clerk. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, please say nay. Hearing none, that should carry unanimously. Do we have a little vote thing? Oh, we just do it automatically. Great, thank you, Madam Clerk. For all 4 votes in approval. So, Chief, if you'll please bring us into item 6.
Item 6 is the National Weather Service report by Eden Lindeman, and as we normally do before every wildland season, we like to give the board an update on what we think will be the weather and what could then translate to our fire risk. So, Eden, thank you.
Welcome.
Good morning. Thanks for having me today. Like Chief said, I am Eden Lindeman. I'm with the National Weather Service in Reno, and I have lived here I've been a forecaster for 16 years now and lived in Reno for 13 years. So we all thought that we had already kind of survived our once-in-a-career winter, and look, it's just come right back again. So I do apologize for the weather this morning, although we do not officially have control over that. So I was very dismayed to see the snow outside again. All right, so this is just a little overview of what we're going to talk about today. So we're going to go over, the relentless winter that we just survived. Our second wettest start in Reno, our 9th highest total. The image on the left is showing all of the atmospheric rivers that made landfall along the west coast. So we had several strong to extreme atmospheric rivers that made landfall into California. These brought heavy precipitation, and we also saw that there wasn't a rain shadow. Sometimes we won't get the rain into the Reno area or even into far western Nevada and into Utah, but there was no rain shadow this year, and it was much colder than normal this year as well. So the image on the right is actually showing an image of the western United States precipitation, and those really green colors, those are showing record wettest for much of the west, spreading from central California into Nevada and into Utah. So it was a really busy season for the entire western United States. So it wasn't just wet, it was also very cold. So this image is showing the departure from normal for our mean temperature from January through March. You can see those very deep blue temperatures. Our March average temperature was almost 8 degrees below normal for Reno, and it was also our 8th coldest high temperature average in Reno. And I'm sure many of you experienced this, that we had no days where we hit 65 or over between November 1st and April 5th. And that was the first time that's ever happened in recorded history since 1894. So remarkably cold and also remarkably wet. This is just a snapshot of what we saw in terms of the snowpack April 1st. So you can see all those really blue numbers, that's greater than or equal to 200%. You can see many areas actually touching that 300% mark. And even into Central California, they had areas where they exceeded 400%. So very remarkable winter, lots of snowpack. So now if we could take a look at this and kind of compare it to what we recall from 2017, this is what we as meteorologists of the Weather Service thought was going to be our once-in-career winter, that 2017 mark. Well, 2023 just had to beat that mark. So you can see there's a couple different images here. For 2023, we're looking at that precipitation again, so we're seeing that record wettest. And 2017 was also very wet, but the major difference between 2023 and 2017 was that 2017 was much, much warmer. You can see the mean temperatures are in those yellow hues, oranges. It was very warm for that winter that year. And for us, we were very, very cold. So basically, any precipitation that was falling as snow didn't have a chance to melt. We didn't really see that period of where we kind of joke about January, where we see that period of like 4 to 6 weeks during January where we tend to not get very much precipitation and it warms up a bit. Any snow that was falling on the ground was really sticking around and holding on for quite some time. So looking into the season that we're in right now, which is our snow melt season, all that snow's got to come off those mountains one way or the other. So you can see that these are seasonal flow averages back from the 1970 all the way until 2023, and that red bar is showing what our projected seasonal flow is for one of our streams in the region. So you can see that we're looking at 2 to 4 times the amount of normal water for this melt season. Carson and Walker Rivers are likely to approach or even set new records as we go through these warming periods and that snow starts to slowly peel off of the Sierra. And the increases that we're seeing lately, are due to that low elevation snowpack. So normally all the snow's up in the upper Sierra, so we can kind of account for that for each snow melt season, but because we saw so much lower elevation and mid-elevation snow, that is going to be contributing to these higher seasonal flows that we're going to see this year. Silver lining to all this snow and all this water, major improvements to the drought status. You can see on the left, that's where we currently stand. Much of western Nevada is not in drought anymore, and same with California. And the image on the right is just showing the 24-week class change improvement. So all those deep blue, and green colors, that's just showing the massive class improvements that we saw over the last several months. So on to the official Predictive Services Outlook. We work in coordination with the Predictive Services Center, and they do the official outlooks in terms of the fire season. Note that for much of the Great Basin across western Nevada is near normal. So if we get into a hotter June and July period, we could see a quick ramp up into the fire activity for the season in western Nevada. But this is the first time in many years, I don't know if I've ever seen below normal projected for the Sierra. So to see those greens across the Sierra in Northern California and down into Central and Southern California, that is a welcome sight at this point, following all that snow and all that rain. And we're even seeing that below normal projected into July. So what we can say right now about the fire season is that, we're going to see a delayed start in the mountains, but it really is a TBD on activity late summer and into the autumn timeframe. In terms of where we might see activity taking off first, the Oregon-Washington areas did not get quite as much snow and rain as we did, less winter precipitation and continued drought for those areas. So what this slide is showing is just kind of a comparison of what other recent big snow years have done. And you can see, you can't see much of western Nevada on there, but what we're trying to illustrate here is during those big snow winters, our mountain fire activity is normally limited and are very much delayed as we go into the fire season. The one wild card in terms of this is going to be with the drought tree kill. The trees that already have kind of fallen astray and don't get the chance to recover with all this snowpack, they're obviously going to contribute to the fire activity once the snow melts off. So in terms of the fire season for the Great Basin, we would anticipate it to be more active because of the increased fine fuels and grasses. But again, that's not a guarantee either. So these are just a few of the examples of the National Weather Service fire weather alerts that you might see. Initially, if we are looking at 2 to 5 days out, we are issuing a fire weather watch. We have medium confidence that we're going to see those conditions occur. And what are those conditions? Red flag conditions are considered very gusty winds and low humidity for several hours at a time, or we're projecting that we're going to see dry lightning. We're going to get a lot of thunderstorms. So if you see a fire weather watch out, then in the next several days, we are expecting to see these conditions develop. When we issue a red flag warning, these conditions are either in effect or will begin to happen in the next 1 to 3 days. So with those critical fire weather conditions, we have like an 80% chance of probability happening. And we like to say at the Weather Service, we obviously don't want to start a fire on any day, but on a red flag day, we definitely want to avoid those activities that may spark a fire. Now, the particularly dangerous situation red flag warning, we've only issued a handful of these over the last several years. We started issuing them back in 2017, and I believe that we've only issued 3. So this is obviously a very high, extremely high confidence that we're going to see a rare type of wind or in the area in combination with dry fuels and very the extreme winds. So in terms of these happening, this is like a once per year or every other year kind of product that would happen. I would compare it to kind of like we issue winter storm warnings all the time, but we don't always issue blizzard warnings. That's kind of a higher end concern. So again, hopefully we can avoid issuing any of these, but if you do happen to see a red flag warning or a PDS red flag warning is issued, this is a very rare event and of extreme concern. So just a few comments on summer recreation. Obviously we had a really warm weekend this past weekend, and I saw there were increased water rescues and things like that. So, streams are going to be running high and cold and fast well into the summer. So flooding impacts are going to be on our minds for several months, including in the campgrounds and nearby roads. So for anybody that's looking to go camping in their typical spots, they might want to check well in advance for those locations. The lakes and rivers are going to be a lot fuller than in recent years. So if you have any backcountry adventures, we know that we'll have plenty of water going well into the summer, even late summer. But again, leaning towards those mid to late summer for those big backcountry adventures might be a good bet at this point with all of that snow that's in those areas. Here's an example of just a few of the information, the way that you can get our information from us. We issue our email briefings, we provide webinars. Our neighbors over in Sacramento, they take over from the Crest and westward into California, so there's contact information there for that. We also issue the fire weather planning forecast every day, and pretty soon here in the next couple of weeks, we'll be issuing that twice a day. My favorite product that we issue is the area forecast discussion. So if you guys ever get a chance to read that, it's kind of a blog style narrative of what we think is going to happen with the weather. And it kind of gives you a flavor for the forecaster's personality and also their confidence in the weather that's going to happen. And we do continue to provide spot weather forecasts for prescribed burns, wildfires, hazmat, search and rescue. And we do have IMETs, certified IMETs on site that can be deployed for any events that are going on in the area. Nobody wants to talk about the other S word, smoke. That's been a part of our conversations the last couple summers. So hopefully, we aren't getting into any smoke concerns this year, but if we are, we do run our high resolution smoke model, and we are able to kind of help project where smoke might travel in and out of the region. And just a reminder, we're available 24/7, 365 days a year. So if you have a burning, no pun intended, weather question in the middle of the night, then we will be there to answer that phone call. And just as a note, that 8105 number is our non-public number, so we try to reserve that just for our fire weather partners. And for those of you that are more dialed in as emergency managers and want to get alerts right away, this is probably the best way to get alerted in terms of thunderstorm potential, fire weather, or flood alerts, which will be a concern. We did actually have thunderstorms overnight with lightning. Thankfully, it's May and not June or July, where things could easily kind of ignite. But this is a great way to sign up on this website. You can sign up to get text notifications and or email notifications. And just a quick projection for late spring into early summer. These seasonal outlooks can be somewhat informative, but obviously we have a lot more skill in that 1 week, 2 week out time frame. So we're not looking at any huge heat waves across the region from May, June, and July, and relatively equal chances for that precipitation outlook as well. All right, and that was all that I had for you guys today. Thank you so much for allowing me to present.
Thank you, Ms. Lindeman. And I'm wondering if the commissioners have any questions. Commissioner Garcia.
So I work with a lot of students. Was it you guys that did the freak out scale back in January, or was that a joke off of your
Oh,
website?
no, that is ours.
That's yours?
It is still ours, yes.
I posted it, I reshared it with the families that I serve, and it was funny because green was no worries, yellow was low freak outness, orange was moderate, and then it went all the way to really bad purple. And so, I just thought it was a creative approach on how to disseminate information to a wide audience. So,
Yeah, and thank you I'll pass that along to our coworkers, because other offices in the Weather Service don't do that. So we enjoy being able to post that and kind of reaching people in a different way.
We're quirky out here.
We're definitely quirky, and our office is snarky. So I would encourage you to read the forecast discussion, because there's some good tidbits in there.
I just wrote that down. I'm excited to check that out.
Yeah.
And this is some of the best news I've seen since I've been in office. So for fire danger, obviously, we're always going to be on alert. But thank you for this. This is very informative. Any other questions by the board? I'm not seeing any. Thank you so much.
No problem. Thank you.
Yes, and this is for discussion only, so we will now go to item 7.
Before I do that, Madam Chair, I just want
Yes.
to mention what a great partner National Weather Service is for us. Knowing what's coming down in a day or two, and even when we're fighting a fire, the spot weather forecast is so essential to us to be able to make the appropriate decisions when we fight a wildland fire. I just want to say thank you to the National Weather Service.
Yes, they're wonderful partners. Thank you for that, Chief.
Item 7, we have a proclamation in support of Nevada Wildfire Awareness Campaign, and if I may have Chief Eisenhagen
Yes.
read that. And with him is Jamie Royce Gomes, who runs the Living with Fire program with UNR. Also another great partner for us in helping get information out to the public.
And then we'll do a picture after that, since you have a, yes, okay, good. Since you have a big banner, so we'll do that. Chief.
Good morning. For the record,
morning.
August Eisenhagen with Truckee Meadows Fire Protection District. I'm the Division Chief over Wildfire and Fuels. I will read the proclamation and then turn it over to Jamie for some comments. Truckee Meadows Fire Protection District Board of Fire Commissioners Proclamation. Whereas wildfire significantly impacts Nevada's environmental, economic, and social well-being, and whereas residents must prepare to survive wildfire by ensuring proper management of vegetation surrounding the home and appropriate home construction and maintenance to resist ignition, and whereas residents need to work together to prepare their homes and communities to survive wildfire and commit to becoming fire adapted, and whereas residents can save precious time in an evacuation by preparing a go bag and family evacuation plan ahead of time, whereas residents can better prepare for wildfire events through home hardening techniques when renovating existing homes and utilizing the Living with Fire guide for planting or replacing vegetation near their home or within the defensible space perimeter of their home, both of which will assist in greater community resiliency in the aftermath of wildfires through reduced loss of buildings. Now, therefore, the Truckee Meadows Fire Protection District's Board of Fire Commissioners proclaim the month of May 2023 as the Nevada Wildfire Awareness Campaign. And this year's banner theme is Protect Our Home, Prepare for Wildfire, as a means for education and a call for residents of Washoe County to work together to be ready for wildfire. Passed, approved, and adopted this second day of May 2023. And with that, I'll turn it over to Jake.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning.
I never realize how short I am unless I stand next to fire agency folks. So for the record, my name is Jamie Royce Gomes, and I am the manager of the Living with Fire program, and we are part of University of Nevada, Reno Extension. So wildfire can threaten Nevadan communities and impact home, property, and human lives. The key to minimizing this impact in Nevada are proactive communities who take the steps to prepare. In response, representatives of Nevada's local, state, and federal firefighting agencies, wildfire-prone communities, partners like the National Weather Service, and University of Nevada, Reno Extension, we have conducted a wildfire awareness campaign since 2006. And again, our theme this year is Protect Our Home, Prepare for Wildfire. And so I just wanted to give a few general tips what residents can do. It's really important to connect with your neighbors and encourage community projects to reduce the wildfire threat. It's really important to keep the first 5 feet from your home free of combustible items, such as wood, mulch, dried leaves, pine needles, pine cones, twigs, branches. Remove flammable shrubs like junipers and sagebrush, and instead plant low or high moisture content, low growing plants, or even like hardscapes, like having rock or DG or pavers. Prepare an evacuation go bag for you and your household. And then we just ask folks to, during the month of May, prepare for wildfire. And even though wildfire knows no season, we've seen it occur in the spring and the fall and the winter and the summer. We just really want to ask folks to prepare year round. So thank you for this opportunity.
Great. All right. Well, we'll take a quick break and take a photo. And then if we also could have Miss Lindeman join us, because she's a partner with this as well. So quick break. Chief Moore, if you'll lead us into item 8.
Madam Chair, I think we need to take a vote.
We need to accept that. Thank you so much. Is there any public comment on the proclamation, Madam
There's
Clerk?
none.
Okay. May I have a motion, please?
So move.
Commissioner Garcia, thank you. May I have a second? Vice Chair Herman, thank you. Any question on the motion? Seeing none. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please say nay. Hearing none, that motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Now, we will go into item 8.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Item 8 is a district financial fiscal outlook presentation by Eugenia Larmore, who is our consultant for our economic forecasting. It has always been a strategic standard for the district to make sure that we know what's going to happen economically and we adjust our budget accordingly. And the way you do that is with good information. And Eugenia's a dependable partner in that to tell us what could happen. Of course, there are as many economists that there's probably as many opinions, but we trust Eugenia's advice. So thank you for being here, Eugenia.
Yeah, she's incredible. She's been doing this for a long time, so welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair Hill, members of the board. For the record, can you hear me? I'm horrible
Yes.
with microphones.
You're doing great.
For the record, Eugenia Larmore, President, EK Economic Consultants. You have the report in front of you, quite a lot of information, so we're just going to hit some highlights of the assumptions behind the projections. And primarily, we're going to focus on the revenue side. That's really what's driven by the economic conditions. The cost side is really is more controlled internally. So the revenues is where we're going to focus. So this is where we are now. The preliminary budget for 23-24 is our base year that we're going to be projecting 5 years forward from. Kind of the other thing to focus, property tax is the main driver of revenue for the fire district and actually for most of the governmental entities in Nevada. So about 54% of the total revenue. And we will be focusing on the general fund only as that's really the primary receiver of revenues and really where all the cash and all of the funds comes from for all the other funds. So 54% for property tax, another about 25% for sales tax. That's broken out in C-tax and AB 104. We'll talk about that in more detail. And the rest, so about 80% from those two revenue sources. Property tax. Historical growth about over the last 5 years was about 6.5% for the district per year. We're looking at about 5.4 per year. We're trying to really incorporate, and the theme here is that we are expecting a softening sometime into the end of 2023 into 2024. We're really hoping if the Fed and all of the steps that are being taken that by 2025 we're going to get to kind of a sustainable long-term stable economy. So a little bit of a drop in 23, some drop and some increase in 24, sustainability by 25. And you'll see that reflected in our projections. So we are projecting a slightly lower increase, 4.1% per year based on historical cap rates for the existing revenue. So that's what we're taking the 23-24 numbers. We're inflating it by 4.1%. But then to that, we actually add new residential and new commercial. And I have Brian Bonenfant here from the Center for Regional Studies. He was the one that did the projections for residential. They do quite a bit of that work at the university. A great partner for us in recognizing partnerships is having that data, and then non-residential based on historical. So all that together is going to drive our new property tax revenue, again at that about 5.4% per year. Sales tax, historical, we have no great data for 2023 as we're in 2023 right now. Property tax is usually projected forward. So over the past 5 years, ending 2022, 10% per year average increase. We're estimating 4.9. If you think about it, that 10% includes the COVID payments, so quite a bit of spending, and it includes the high inflation period that we just experienced and are still experiencing to this date. We're expecting that, again, to really get to about that 2% inflation that the Fed is expecting by the end of 2024 into early 2025. So that will stabilize, but with inflation, wages will also stabilize. And that taxable sales growth will also be much lower than it has been historically. So about half at 4.9% is what we're predicting. And that's really a combination of population growth. The more bodies you have in the area, the more they're spending, and income growth. The more money you have, the more you'll spend. So 1.5 and 3.4 together is 4.9 per year. Remaining consolidated in AB 104 revenue, excluding that sales tax that is a component in both, we're expecting lower growth in those, again, compared to historical. Cigarette and liquor revenue has actually been declining significantly. I would like to think it's because people are coming out of COVID healthy, and we are seeing that on the cigarette tax revenue. Cigarette tax revenues and cigarette usage actually declined. There's been a number of studies decline post-COVID, so that's good to see. But that also impacts the revenue. So below historical levels, and same thing with AB 104, driven primarily by gaming tax revenue and RPTT, the real property transfer tax. We're expecting those to be below historical levels. And then there's quite a bit of other revenue. It's about 16% of the total budget. Interlocal agreements, we're expecting no change. To that, that's things that are difficult to predict, and there's just no expectation and significant changes to those agreements. Federal and state grants, we're expecting no revenue as 2 of the bigger grants are expected to expire by the time of our projection period. Charges for services really depend on the expenditures, so we're growing them at the same rate as the expenditures. And the fuels program, we're making that's a reimbursable program, so we're making that equal to the expenditures for that program. Miscellaneous, no change, so we're just going to go with a historical revenue amount with no increases. So that's where that puts us, about 4.7, 4.8% per year growth, still very healthy growth, but below the about 9% historical growth for this fund revenue. Again, really to account, and we would like to, on the revenue side, we like to be conservative. You really hate to overestimate revenues and have those expended and not come true. So very conservative analysis, but really taking into account the softening that we're expecting. For expenditures, this is a base analysis, so we're just taking the 23-24 numbers and we're growing them 2.5%. We are not expecting any increases in capital outlay or any new hires. We're just growing it by the salary and just the cost increases. So this is pretty simple. And that takes us to the comparison. So we take the beginning fund balance, all of our revenues, all of the expenditures, and that gets us to an ending fund balance. Very healthy and consistently increasing ending fund balance, which then will allow the district to go above those base expenditures as needed. And that's all I have for you today. And again, both I and Mr. Bonifant are open to any questions.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Clark.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to welcome you here to the meeting this morning. We've worked together over the years. For those of you who don't know, Ms. Larimar oftentimes sits on this side of the dais with the County Board of Equalization. So she's very familiar with the tax laws and rules and regulations and values of real estate here in the county. She does a great job. So welcome. Welcome. I'm glad you're here. I wanted to bring up a couple of things, and it may be down in kind of the weeds, but I think that if people get an understanding of this, they'll see the significance. The federal government just changed some underwriting guidelines, Fannie Mae, for home purchases. It's going to make, in addition to the interest rates doubling in the last year or so, now we've got a situation where people with good credit are going to be charged a higher interest rate. So if you play by the rules, pay your bills on time, everything you're doing everything you're supposed to, you're going to be penalized for that. And the idea is we're going to charge you more to give money to somebody who probably in the past wouldn't qualify. And I compliment that people are trying to help people get into houses, but it's going to be detrimental for those that are paying their bills on time and making the proper down payments. And it isn't just my opinion. We've got some 32 or 33 states in the United States have written letters to the federal government about this new rule. It just took place, I guess, yesterday. And even I see on the news this morning that our state controller wrote a letter to the feds opposing this change. How do you think this will impact, really, I know my opinion, but what do you think this will affect the impact on sales? And if it becomes harder to buy a house, many times the property owners, the sellers, have to reduce their value. I know we're not based on sales here, but it still will affect value to some degree. How do you see that impacting what your projections are? Thank you.
And while it may, just assuming that the sales number declines or prices decline, while it may not impact taxable sales on the property side, RPTT, real property transfer tax, will be impacted. And that's a relatively important number that we have through consolidated tax and AB 104. As far as the policy, I'm not a policy person, but from an economic standpoint, one, of course, we hate to see good behavior disincentivized, which this may create. I'm not sure as to the sensitivity. I think I've seen the analysis that it's about $40 per month, an increase on a $400,000 home. That's obviously an impact. I'm not sure the sensitivity that buyers will have, that it will preclude sales. I think we're getting to that point where even with the higher mortgage rates, that home prices or your mortgage bill compared to your rental bill, I mean, we all have to live somewhere. I think people are going to accommodate it, but it's definitely going to create a change in the market. I'm just not sure that we have studied and understood the magnitude of that impact.
Sure. And I don't expect you to have a crystal ball to predict that. But what I'm hearing in the real estate world, and I own a mortgage company, first of all, to buy an entry-level home now is about $1,000 a month more. That's $12,000 a year. And so that adds up, and then another $40 a month. And, it's just chipping away at it. What I'm getting a sense of the people that I've talked to is people are resentful of the fact that they played by the rules, and now they're going to, if it's penalized by $1, it's still not the right thing to do. If somebody's paying their bills on time and maintaining good credit scores, so the resentful fact is what I'm looking at, and it may impact values. So just something to think about. And I was surprised to see that a majority of the states, 32 or 33 of the states, oppose this, and even the state of Nevada is opposing it. So something to keep in mind. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Clark. And what I really love about this analysis, and I think the chief for working with your firm, is that it's so data-driven. So thank you for that. There's a lot of noise out there, and I think just actually having this, I wrote a ton of notes, and then also the report. It's very helpful to kind of calm folks down about what we're really estimating here and the real numbers that we're looking at. So thank you for that. Any other commissioner comments? Chief, do you have anything else to add?
I do not.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
This is not an action item, so we will now go to item 9. Chief.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Item 9 is an International Association of Firefighters Local 2487 report.
Good morning. For the record, Pat Walsh, President, Truckee Meadows Firefighters. I don't have a whole lot for you guys today other than to say this last month on the 24th of April, we raised north of $34,000 for children's cancer research with our brothers and sisters at the Washoe County Sheriff's Office. So we're incredibly proud of all those people that helped. I hope you guys were able to show up and have a cocktail and enjoy the day with them. I wasn't able to, but that's another story. And then one other thing, the Truckee Meadows Firefighters Foundation is having a pickleball tournament May 20th at the Hidden Valley Country Club, right? Perfect. There are still signups, so if any of you guys would like to sign up.
Can beginners do this or no?
Absolutely.
Okay.
We're all beginners, let's be real.
Okay.
There are still,
it looks fun.
There are still open signups, and if we
Okay.
open it up to the the pros will all get schooled, so we'd rather our people, do
I know a lot of our seniors are amazing at this game, so.
It's kind of impressive to watch. So, again, May 20th, it starts pretty early in the morning, 8:30, but we would love it if you guys could come out and show support or join up and get a team together.
Well, and I'm so bummed I missed it, but the firefighters memorial also opened in
That's
Carson.
correct.
How was
Yes.
that event?
That was an amazing showing. There was our brothers and sisters from all over the state. There was hundreds of firefighters, and
So cool.
we marched from Carson Station 51 to the site and had a nice little memorial. So
Nice.
it was good to see.
That's great. Any commissioner questions or comments? Thank you
Perfect.
so
Thanks
much.
so
Good
much.
to see you, President. Okay, back to item 10, Mr. Chief.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Item 10 is the fire chief's report. Start with green waste. We're becoming a victim of our own success rather quickly in that, and we've got a lot of chips to have to move in Washoe Valley in order to make room for the program again, but we'll get started on that. And those chips will be recycled. We hope to transport them down to Carson City to full circle composting, who turns that into soil, into mulch, and other good products for the community to use. So it's a full circle
Yeah.
to get our green waste down there. But I think the additional volume was certainly as a result of all the storms that we had, and I think people trimming their branches and whatnot have increased the usage of that program. We may have more need for curbside chipping, and we're looking at seeing how many more individuals could use that. I've had one request for Washoe Valley for us to come through again. So I'll work with the citizens on that and try to pick a date and continue that. But don't believe we're doing any more programs until the fall. And I'll look to Chief Eisenhagen to see what our schedule is for the near term.
For the record, August Eisenhagen, Division Chief again. Chief is correct. We don't have anything planned in terms of open burning, green waste disposal, or curbside chipping until the fall. The main reason behind that is as we go into the fire season, we're just as likely to spark a fire with all of those moving pieces of equipment as we are to help. So we hit pause during the summer, and we'll revamp in the fall.
Great. Thank you for your work on that. Very important.
No thank you deserved to me. That's all our wildland crews and Nevada Division of Forestry, because they contributed personnel as well. So
That's great.
big thanks to them.
Item 2, you may recall that Commissioner Herman brought up a concern about the use of red fire retardant. And through our research, we couldn't find anything that would suggest that that was not going to be used until we came across a federal lawsuit that was filed that seeks to curb the use of red fire department because of environmental concerns of the red fire retardant getting into stream courses. We're going to watch that very, very closely, but what seems to be contraindicated to me is that if there's concern for environmental damage, to not use red fire retardant will make wildland fires much bigger. We depend on aircraft to be able to control those wildfires. And certainly I'm very concerned about how this lawsuit might adjudicate. But nevertheless, we'll be looking at that. But I thought I should bring that to your attention, because if there's any way for us to, I don't know, opine into that lawsuit, I don't know if we're able to do that or not, but we certainly have a significant interest in the use of fire retardant because it helps us pinch off the direction of wildland fires to a point to where we can flank it and then put it out. So I copied you the lawsuit in your board packets, which outlines the concerns there. Finally, I wanted to discuss the 5-year capital plan as it has a significant bearing on our budget this year, which Ms. Vance will present here very soon. But our strategy in the budget is really just to deal with our obligations, with our labor contracts, with the new obligation with PERS, as the amount being charged for our PERS contributions has gone way up. We simply didn't find any capacity to be able to do any significant capital projects. I believe you, Madam Chair, had asked for us to take a look at our capital going forward, and it really is painted with some broad strokes here, but we do have a lot of capital that we want to get done.
Right.
The one that I think we can do certainly is the Apple Fire Station, because Apple Incorporated is paying the lion's share of that station. We want to add on an additional bay and a couple of bedrooms, which will not be a significant cost for us. But that one I see that we'll be able to get going here in the spring of 2024. And it'll take about 9 months to a year to complete that station. The other two stations that we're looking at are Washoe Valley and Hidden Valley. Hidden Valley, the engine, the fire engine that goes in that apparatus bay, it's kind of unique because it's the only one in our fleet that fits in that very small, old volunteer building. So at some point, we need a modern apparatus bay in order to fit a new piece of apparatus into that station. And the engine that's at that station is getting very, very old in terms of miles and years. So that's an important capital project we need to look at. And of course, Washoe Valley has been contemplated since 2019 to put that station in the strategic location to be able to serve Washoe Valley out of one location. In talking to our bond consultant, we just simply don't have the C-tax capacity to be able to pay for the bonding right now. And as you saw in Eugenia's presentation, we're hopeful that that's going to pick up. But we're going to have to hit the pause button on any significant capital expenditures. So we had been planning to go to the debt commission and planning to go to sell bonds and to get those stations built at the beginning of 2024. But I do believe we'll have to be delayed for at least a year, hopefully not longer than that. So your staff's plan is to get the stations shovel ready. Hidden Valley is already done. The architectural plans are ready to go for a building permit. So when we do have the money for that, we can go. And Washoe Valley is the exact same plan as we're using for Apple. So there won't be a lot of time or architectural expense to get the station ready for Washoe Valley when the time comes. And we are going to look at grants for those stations. There is a new grant coming down from the federal government to pay for new fire stations and remodel old ones. Washoe County's grant team is very, very helpful in that. So that's how we're going to focus our ability to try to find money to build the stations. Let me talk a little bit about rolling stock. We have a total of 3 fire engines that need replacement. If I could just kind of tell you what that looks like really quick. We have one engine that was built in, 2 engines that were built in 2007, and now they're looking at around 130,000 to 140,000 miles on them. So you may recall in a previous meeting where I mentioned that the build time for a fire engine is somewhere around 30 months. So we've got to order those fire engines, I think now, sometime within the next 6 months, to get them here in another 24 to 30 months. And those stations, or those fire engines, will be about 17, 18 years old when we get them. We normally figure 10 to 12 years of frontline service, then we put them into reserve. So we're really going to push the envelope on those 3 engines. We've talked about a ladder truck. Staff also needs and recommends replacing some brush engines and some water tenders. So we're developing this capital list to try to fit that into the budget when and the economy when it finally recovers and we see our C-tax go up. What we'll need to do and bring back to the board is prioritizing all of these capital projects. Right. But I think the fire engines are number one because that's how we deliver service. And we have stations and we do have fire trucks, but they're wearing out quickly. So the task at hand, I think, then in the next 18 months is 1, finding grants, 2, prioritizing the capital that we need to get ready for And 3, finally, when the economy recovers and we have enough C-tax capacity to issue bonds, then we will do that. And there's more capital that could go on the list, but I kept the list of really the big items there.
This is a great list. Thank you for this, to kind of be able to say what the plan is. So thank you for pulling that
So
together.
again, just holding the course on what our obligations are, keeping everyone employed, no layoffs, but it does concern me in the budget that we are deficit spending this year. Ms. Vance will go into that here in a little bit. And if we were to have 2 years of that, then I really start to lose more hair than I already have. And we'll have to make some adjustments within our organization. But Eugenia's presentation gives me hope that things are going to start turning around. I follow the economic news very closely, and a lot of what I read, particularly out of Bloomberg, is that we think that we're going to start to recover here fairly shortly. So I'm encouraged. But again, the status quo budget, which I'll let Ms. Vance get into here in the next, I think on the next agenda item. So that is my chief's report. If there's any questions, I'd be glad to answer them.
Any questions? Commissioner Clark?
Thank you, Chief Moore, for your report. I wanted to talk about first Washoe Valley Fire Station. That's been on the books or contemplated or thought about since 2019. Is that correct?
We first started planning for it in 2000.
So now we're at 2023 and haven't broken ground yet. What do you, just a guesstimate ballpark, how much do you think extra this facility costs now than it would have cost if we just started it back in 2019, approximately?
I do know that Hidden Valley, if we can extrapolate from that, Hidden Valley a few years ago was $2.5 million, and now is approaching $4 to $4.5.
An extra 4.5.
An extra.
Okay, so my point, I wanted to point this out, is this kind of stuff is going to go on forever. Not much is cheaper today than it was then. So if we need things, this is incumbent upon this body to place the orders and to get moving forward, because it's only going to cost more later. And that's an issue. Back to your apparatus that you're looking for. I was at Remsey yesterday. Had a tour of that facility. It takes them 24 months to get their vehicles. It takes you 30 months or more. And so, if we need things, we need to be thinking and looking into the windshield instead of the rearview mirror, figuring out how we can get these things ordered so A, they're delivered when we need them, and B, we can have some cost savings if we act on it. So I think it's prudent that we move forward and get these facilities started. We get the apparatus ordered. We need to figure out how to do this, because at the end of the day, this is public safety. We need to have operational vehicles. We need to have fire stations that are open for business. So I'm all in favor of trying to get these things ordered and these things done. $4 million. If we could have saved $4 million on a fire station, how many pieces of apparatus could we have purchased?
Probably at least 4.
Well, there you go. I mean, that's what I'm talking about. This is economic prudence to look forward and place the orders and approve these things that we need. And these are public safety issues. The county continues to grow. There's more people here today. There'll probably be more people here 4 years from now. There'll probably be more people here now than there were in 2019. So we need to protect the citizens, and we need to make sure that these facilities are ordered and started and finished and open for business, and the same with the apparatus. So I support you in moving forward as fast as we can. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Garcia?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I have 2 questions on 2 different items. So the first one comes from 10A, the 4th item regarding the career fair and the K-12 outreach. Recruitment and retention is incredibly important to me, as is our workforce development as a regional kind of approach. The report says that you targeted 2 high schools and reached almost 2,000 students in those efforts, which is amazing. Can you explain to me how those 2 high schools were identified, North Valley's High School and Reno High School?
I cannot, Commissioner. I don't know how those were selected, but I could certainly follow up on that for you.
Okay, the reason I ask is that I think, I brought this up in our strategic planning envisioning session yesterday. I think that kind of strategic and intentional outreach to our youth is a really beautiful way to retain and recruit locally grown children who may not have the social capital to be able to go ask, a friend or an uncle or an aunt who is part of the Truckee Meadows Fire Protection District and have no clue on how to access a career. And they're wonderful careers, and I think we can all agree that it's something that we all would like to see as a diversification of our workforce and our staff in terms of EMS and fire service. So I really like where you're going with this. I'd be happy to collaborate and offer my support in those efforts so that we can continue to dip down into the K-12 setting to expose our local students to these amazing careers. So that was the first question I had. And the second one is about item 10B in your in the incident response. So I've been here 4 months, and every single month I scroll down to see which part of the county has the highest number of incident calls and responses. And so Sun Valley, month over month, continues to be the highest call volume in our region. And so I really like your monthly report because you disaggregate the monthly incidences into EMS, fire, and everything. And maybe this is a conversation we can have offline, but I'd really like to dig into what's happening in Sun Valley. When we get your text messages, which I, again, applaud you on your communication, and I read, structural fire, 9 times out of 10, I'm placing a bet in my own head that it's a structural fire that's taken place in Sun Valley. And it's, it's concerning to me. And so part of me, as a representative of Sun Valley, is wondering if there's more that I could be doing to help disseminate information to the residents of Sun Valley in terms of how to prevent, tips, just messaging in general, outreach that I could be involved with to help try to see these numbers go down a bit. But I would love either offline or at a future commission meeting to dig into the Sun Valley data, see it disaggregated. And in that light, at a BCC meeting not too long ago, we had a opioid presentation. And I took a screenshot of one of the PowerPoint slides because it was listing the zip codes with the highest EMS incidences for non-fatal overdoses. And I think 4 of the 5 zip codes, I was talking to Chair Hill about this, were in District 3. Mm-hmm. So I'm just concerned overall, and I like the data that you provide. I was hoping to really look at that particular part of our county, if possible.
I think there's a lot more that we can distill from the data as we get into that. And Sabrina Brazel is here, who runs the EMS oversight program. She can certainly help us with that effort. Because I do know that people on the lower end of the socioeconomic scale will use 911 as their pathway into healthcare because they have no other choice. And that's a part of it, and there's other parts to that, but certainly EMS is a big component of the response into Sun Valley. I've always been concerned about the structure fires, the frequency of structure fires in Sun Valley. And that's a little harder to get at because there's so many different types of causes there, but I can work with Chief Way on that, and we can do more analysis as to why we have such a high frequency there and see if there's some fire prevention strategies that we could put forward.
I think it'd be worthwhile to present it to the full board. I'd be very interested to see if there's certain, looking through an equity lens, if we need to be investing more heavily in those efforts to, ensure people's safety. I know a dear friend of mine lost her home, and she lives in Sun Valley, and I don't know what the full cause of that was, but it's a devastating loss for that family, and they're struggling to, pull the pieces together. So each individual, it all matters and adds up. So I'd love to see that full report once it's ready, of course, Chief.
Anecdotally, and I'll look to Chief Way, I think the highest number is just really accidental fires of not necessarily electrical causes, although that sometimes has an element of accidental because they get overloaded with respect to the current that's being pulled through them. Yeah, there's the causes that I'm familiar with are just kind of all over the board. And, do you have anything more to add to that, Chief?
Good morning, Dale Way, Deputy Fire Chief, Truckee Meadows Fire. Having not done a complete analysis of that, but I can tell you that yes, overwhelmingly there are a lot of accidental fires there. I think it's pretty well known. There's a lot of hoarding conditions within Sun Valley. I've tried to work extensively with code enforcement at Washoe County to identify some properties. I know they're a little bit short-staffed in trying to deal with that particular area, which would help quite a bit. I mean, not only that, it helps our firefighters as they try to make access onto properties, even for EMS calls. I mean, I've been with our crews on EMS calls where it's entirely hard to get the gurney up to the modular or mobile home. So, I mean, this is a kind of a historical thing I've read up on with Sun Valley, and I'd like to see kind of a bigger effort. You know, I don't know if you guys could involve possibly waste management in assisting with some more cleanup. But again, I think to Chief's message, socioeconomics plays a huge deal. Coming originally from North Las Vegas, which is the most diverse city in the state of Nevada, and the most, it's in the top, I think, 20 most diverse cities in the United States. Ended up with a lot of similar neighborhoods, right? You have your really good neighborhoods over here, and you have your really bad neighborhoods over here where people are, you know, hoarding. Even with messaging at times, it's hard. They're going to do what they have to do. One I can think of within the last, say, year and a half, the person owned the trailer, they didn't own the land. He went and did a bunch of his own electrical work, as Chief indicated, which caused the fire, as well as adding on to the modular, you know, not unpermitted addition. But there was trash stacked all over. And it seemed like a very nice gentleman. Like he told me, he's out working for a living. The landlord is responsible for trash, and they only had the small trash can from Waste Management. And like he said, there's me, my wife, 2 teenagers, and a baby. You know, I filled that thing up in 2 days. And so one of the ideas I had was trying to get through to Waste Management and say, you really shouldn't allow anything except the big trash can on any property in Sun Valley. I mean, if you drive through there, you can see that's evident. And when people run out of options, that's what they do, is they just start stacking it. You know, same thing, having gone with our crews going inside to people's houses. Again, socioeconomics plays a big deal, and sometimes people with less tend to keep more of what they do have, right? And being inside, it's hard to walk around. So the more we surround ourselves with, just like if you look at what used to happen in firefighting, you know, if you go back in time to say the 50s or the 40s, we had literally almost 30 minutes before a flashover of a fire. Because we had natural things, natural fibers, you know, all of our surroundings inside of our buildings were naturally made. Today it's all synthetics and plastics, which burns like 8 times hotter than all the natural stuff. And our window for a flashover is 3 minutes. So flashover occurs at the ceiling level and in the room. It ignites everything in there, gets to about 1,000 degrees Fahrenheit quick, you know. And so trying to get people to reduce, but that's the other problem, is it's hard to regulate personal property, right? Unless they're creating an extreme danger to adjoining personal properties, it's hard for us as government to go in there and say, do something with all this. That's what code enforcement's for. On the county side, that's really the aesthetics of property ownership and maintenance.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I have already reached out to Commission Support actually Sunday night to see if I can purchase some dumpsters and help promote some cleanup days in these neighborhoods. I was out knocking on doors on Sunday to promote my coffee event at the senior center. So I was walking along 6th, Slope, and Birdie, and I sent pictures to Commission Support because of all the debris. Some of the entrances to these homes, if you could get past the no trespassing gate, were you could barely get to the front door. And I know that you're right about the socioeconomic. It costs money to go to the dump. It takes a truck. These are all privileges that many folks do not have. But I know over time, Sun Valley is just always in the front of my mind, and seeing how we can help promote some outreach and communication and opportunities for people to get rid of stuff. Because you're
Me
right.
as well, Commissioner, and
Yeah.
I'm more than happy to work with you, or anything like that, because it's kind of like, as I see it, it's pet project of mine that I'd like to see a lot more improvement there, and I think it can.
Yeah, I agree, and I appreciate that. And I'm some of the people in this room where I was on a fire call during when I was campaigning and responded to a structural fire that took place at a trailer, and it's devastating, and it goes up so fast. And so, yeah, it's a big, grave concern of mine. So, thank you.
And once we have the data, we can really push on better decisions and investments as well. So, thank you. Commissioner Clark, I had you signed in. Are you still? No. Okay. Any other announcements? All right. Thank you, Chief. We will now go, and this was this is for possible action. So is there any public comment, Madam Clerk? Okay. Now we will go to item 11. Chief.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Item 11 is a presentation and review of the fiscal year 2023-2024 tentative budget and discussion regarding the priorities and projects anticipated in the budget. Recommendation to bring the tentative budget and any board-directed changes back to the Board of Fire Commissioners for a public hearing and approval of the final budget. And that will occur on May 16th, I believe.
Okay. Not a meeting you do not want to miss. Fireworks. Ms. Vance.
Good morning, Commissioners. Cynthia Vance, CFO, for the record. I know we've already had quite a bit of discussion on really the budget with Ms. Larimore and the other capital projects, so I will keep this simple but go into any detail if anybody wishes more detail. Okay. Currently, we are expected to keep our staffing levels all funded and stable. 207 current staffing is the current staff that's approved. We do include funding for all positions at 100% in the budget. Some of the savings may be on some vacancies, and we can talk about that later, but we have our suppression staff at 124, fuels 37, administration, which includes our logistics and volunteer coordinators, which volunteer coordinator is grant funded at 12, training 4, prevention 5, fleet 4, EMS 21, and that does include a staff of 18 for the ambulances, and for 207 total. Okay. You've heard a lot about our revenues, so these are our main revenue sources. Of course, our property tax and consolidated tax, and that is just over 80% of our budget comes from those two sources. The current property tax is still seeing the larger increases from fiscal year 23 to 24 is about 7% of increase, and we are using the state provided projections, and those have been very close, so we continue to use them. Consolidated tax is only a 2.6% increase from last year's budget. But we're not actually expected to hit budget on that for fiscal year 23. That's not on there, but right now we're running about 0.3% above budget as of the last collections. Okay. We have our other governmental, which are some of those other sales-related taxes. Miscellaneous and other, most of that is kind of reimbursements for different things and licenses and permits. Charges for services is a majority our fuels program, where we provide services for cleaning. Most of that is from NV Energy. So we're looking at about 47.5 million in total revenues for fiscal year 24. Okay. For expenditures, we kept our expenditures as flat as possible. Most of our obligations are under the CBAs, the collective bargaining agreements. The increase for fiscal year 24 was already negotiated, and that is a 2.75% salary increase on July 1st and another one on January 1st. So average about 4.16% for the year. The other big impact is the PERS. So PERS as of July 1st for police fire, which is a majority of our employees, will increase from 44% to 50%. Under the collective bargaining agreement, the district does pick up that whole increase. So many governments split that. So on that, we would see 3% to the employees and a reduction of wages, and then 3% for the salaries. But under our agreements for both police fire and regular, we do give that in lieu of a raise. So that is almost like an additional 3% raise. For regular, it is going up 3.75%, which is pretty significant also, from 29.75% to 33.5%. So that is a big chunk of our employee benefits and salary and wages, and that's 83% of our budget. The rest is the services and supplies, which we've maintained fairly flat. Our capital outlay actually in the general fund relates to a contract with NV Energy to purchase another apparatus. So that is also reimbursed and reflected in reimbursement revenues. So our total expenditures for operating is $46,238,000. So that does just over $1 million of operating revenues, but that is what we use to fund all the different other funds. Okay. Some of the programs included in our general fund, we do have specific programs that we held pretty much flat that are supported with our general fund monies, and that includes the peer support program at $95,000, wet team, and that's training and other equipment they may need, at $30,000, SCBA repair and replacement, $137,000 to keep those up to date, radio repair and replacement, again keeping all those radios up to date, $248,000. The hazmat team at $25,000. Our MDTs, which are the computers, that is $10,000. That's just for replacement as needed. Assessment programs, which are required under the CBA, is $80,000. Officer development schools, $40,000. New recruit academy, $185,000, and the green waste program at $86,000. So in summary, we're projecting a beginning fund balance of just over $7.5 million, and that is about 18.9% of the projected expenditures for fiscal year 23, the one that we're current in. So we budgeted, last year's original budget, final budget was 13.2% for the ending fund balance, and we expect that we'll actually end at 18.9%. So when we bring that forward with our revenues and expenditures, our other financing uses, which includes our contingency fund of $400,000, which is a standard that we've been using, and then transfers out because our other funds are not, most of our other funds do not have any revenue sources, including our construction fund, our workers' comp, and our sick and annual comp benefits fund, which is a growing one. And that is just over $4.7 million, which gives us a projected ending fund balance of 4.2, which is a 9.27. Again, we budget conservatively, so we have covered all of our expenditures and we keep our revenues smaller of what we do know, and we'll continue to try to grow revenues so I would expect that to end actually a little higher, which is pretty common practice. Okay. Part of that transfer out and those other financing sources is $1 million in our current debt services. And as you can see, that stays pretty much at $1 million through the next 5 years. And that includes a $4 million equipment debt, a $2 million property debt, and a facilities, and a $7 million facilities debt. So we have 3 outstanding bonds. Okay. Capital Projects Fund, again, is only really funded by transfers from the general fund. We may have some sales of older apparatus, but that's usually fairly minimal. As Chief Moore had stated, we're really trying to get to our shovel ready for most of our projects so that as we have the ability to fund the projects, we're in a position to do that fairly quickly. We also include and maintain a balance to address unforeseen capital repairs and capital replacements. Our other funds include the Emergency Medical Services, which is our new proprietary fund. This will be fiscal year 23 was the first year of it, so fiscal year 24 is we're pushing our second year. There is a fairly large transfer from the general fund into this, mostly because this fund's revenues, a majority of them come from the GEMT funds, which are related to Medicare, and they come late. Those are almost 2 years in the rears, so in fiscal year 23, we received the revenue related to services provided in fiscal year 21. So we did keep the budget for the revenues at 1.7 million. Fairly flat, but we have increased our transports and such, so we expect that to go, but it's going to be still a couple more years till we really see the revenues become steady in that fund, just because of that delayed revenues. The other funds that we have, the Emergency Fire Fund, and that's kind of a self-replenishing. You can have up to 1.5 million in deposits. So we budget high for extreme fire, but we also budget large reimbursements to equal that, because that is majority reimbursed. There's a few expenditures if the fire is only less than 24 hours that we may not get reimbursed for that. Okay. Our sick and annual comp benefits fund, we did set up a separate fund to kind of accumulate resources to pay as our staff gets older and they leave service. They do get some people get a significant benefit payout. So we will transfer about $250,000. But the current balance in our compensated absences is about $7.7 million. Okay. Debt service fund, again, this is just to pay the principal and interest of that $1 million on our current debt. A stabilization fund that can be only used if revenues fall at a certain amount. And that is a fund balance that's just been growing from investment income to $625,000. And then the workers' compensation fund, which is an internal service fund, we use that to pay claims related to the City of Reno Heart and Lung. Under our agreement with them, we are liable for certain claims that may occur. And with heart and lung claims, you can see those past retirement. So those do come. We believe the balance in that fund will pay for those for the current future. I don't see that we'll hopefully never need another transfer to that fund. Okay. And any questions, recommendations, concerns?
I am not seeing any commissioners signed in. I think you've done a great job. I know that we have a little bit of stress with where we're coming in on C-Tax, but or is it also property, but mainly C?
No, property is currently running fairly good, but C-Tax is what is used for our ability to pay on debt.
Right.
And that I do have concerns. Again, this last one, I did bring the amount. We just received in April, that would have been for February? Yeah, February, which was 778,000, which is 9% under budget
Right.
and actually less than prior year, which does concern me that we won't meet our current budget, but we have other funds that are exceeding there. So as far as revenues for the current year, I do see that we're going to be at budget, just in different sources.
And I think that just shows how prudent former boards, I'm not necessarily patting myself on the back, but former boards have been in making sure that they're carefully looking at expenditures. And the chief, of course, has also kept his eye on that. And thank you for your leadership in that. So I don't have any comments. I feel really comfortable with what you're presenting. I think it's a very good budget, and I'm excited to officially adopt it in May. But seeing anyone else? Okay, so this is for possible action. Do we need to adopt the report, or do you think direction from the board is enough?
I think if you're not giving her any, further
New.
direction or
Okay.
new direction on that, I think that just bringing it back on the next meeting is fine. I don't think there's any action needed today.
Thank you, Mr. Carner. Is there any public comment, Madam Clerk?
There is none.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Vance. We will now go to item 12. Chief.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Item 12 is a recommendation to accept the 2023 annual performance evaluation of Fire Chief Charles Moore to include a discussion of results, goals, and objectives. If approved, authorize staff to make all necessary adjustments. So Ms. Arribiaga is under the weather today. Normally she would give you that report. Just a little bit awkward for me to present my own evaluation, but I'll give it a
Well, I
shot.
think we can read it. So hopefully the board has done the reading and seen the summary. I kind of open it up to board members to give comments. I know former board members didn't necessarily like to use the online survey tool. I did take the survey, and I think you're doing a great job, Chief. It's a pleasure to work with you. Your passion for the district and for our region, it's incredible. You are literally saving people's lives on the side of the freeway, which I get very worried about. But we appreciate your work, and this is hard work, especially with what this region has tasked you and the other leaders to look at consolidated dispatch. And I know that those discussions are intense as well. So I just commend you, and I really enjoy working with you. And your constant communication and outreach is very helpful for me. But I open it up to the board to see if folks want to say some things for the record for this review. I see Vice Chair Herman signed in.
I will just second what she just said. She did such a wonderful job with that, and I feel the same way. Thank you.
Madam Chair, I'd just like to say that I've got a talented staff, and kind of look at my job as orchestra conductor, where it is, and my staff are the ones playing the music. And, this district runs because it's a team. I appreciate your comments, and it's heartfelt for me, but just know that it's a lot of people making this district work.
Absolutely, and a good leader always points that out. A good leader also, the chief, I will disclose to the board, is not asking for any additional pay or a merit increase or bonus. He will be receiving the same costs. I don't know if it's a cost of living increase that our employees will be receiving, so that 4.16 at the end of the fiscal year, and then the 3% for PERS. But that's also a good leader because he's seeing the softening of C-tax and wants to show that he's not asking for any more that he wouldn't give to his employees. So I commend you for that, Chief, and thank you. I wish we could do some more, but I do think that's probably a smart way to go. Anyone else signed in that want to say anything? Okay. well. We need to accept, I do think we need to accept this performance evaluation. But before we do that, do we have any public comment signed in?
There's none.
Okay. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you,
Sorry.
Vice Chair. May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Garcia. With a first and a second, any questions on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, please say nay. Okay, and that motion passes unanimously. Thank you so much, Chief, for your hard work.
Thank you.
We will now go, well, we're skipping item 13, correct?
Correct.
We'll now go to item 14. Chief.
Item 14 is Commissioners and Fire Chiefs announcements, requests for information, topics for future agendas, and statements relating to items not on the agenda, and no discussion among commissioners will take place on this item.
Do you have anything else for us, Chief?
I just want to wish the best wishes to my number 2 Deputy Chief, Chris Kettering, who's undergoing shoulder surgery this morning. So we wish him the best and a speedy recovery.
Yes, absolutely. That's an intense surgery. Commissioner Clark.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I've got a meeting this afternoon with some folks in the west side of Washoe Valley, but I got a couple of questions that they'd like me to pose to you, Chief, so I'd like to get you on the record for this. I'd like to request that you provide information about the response statistics under item 8, seeing as how Station 30 West Washoe Valley has been closed since August 1st. What do the 31 calls in March 2023, what do the statistics represent? So some clarification on item item 8, and statistics about the 31 calls in March. Do we have, can I get that from you? I don't need it right now. I guess you can respond if you can, or maybe you can get me that information and I can share that with the constituents there.
If you let me know your deadline, I'll make sure I get that to you in time.
Well, I'm going to meet with them this afternoon, but I can meet with them anytime. So I'm not pressing you. What do you need, a week, day, 2 weeks? What do you think would be a fair time to turn that information around?
It's pretty easy to calculate. I will do my best as I get back to the office, but no longer than a day.
Very good. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And I don't see any other speakers, so I do want to state for the record, Commissioner Andriola was not on this invitation, and I think just with her being so new, she was not notified of today's meeting. So if we could add her, Chief, to the future meeting notifications, make sure she's all up to snuff. I feel bad as chair. I will definitely put that on myself that I didn't notice that and wasn't preparing her, because I wanted to make sure that all new commissioners are prepared for meetings. And so I definitely put that on myself. But I do now see Commissioner Clark is signed in again.
Sure. I didn't realize that Commissioner Andriola hadn't been notified about this, but myself have not been notified about a lot of things since I've been here. I feel sorry for her, and I hope that doesn't happen again. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. With that, not seeing any other sign-ins, we will now go to item 15. Chief.
Item 15 is final public comment. Comment heard under this item will be limited to 3 minutes per person and may pertain to matters both on and off the Board of Fire Commissioners agenda. The district will also hear public comment during individual action items with a comment limited to 3 minutes per person. And comments are to be made to the Board of Fire Commissioners as a whole.
Thank you, Madam Clerk.
There is nobody signed in.
Okay. Well, with that, I appreciate everyone's great work on a fabulous meeting. We are adjourned.